Before I begin, I want to get a disclaimer out of the way. I'm going to be talking about and criticizing how the Cleveland show portrays religion and people who are religious. You may not agree with what I say here, and that's fine. This video is meant to solely critique the episode and the conflict that goes with it, not to attack religion or religious people. So, with that out the way, let's begin. The episode begins with the Browns and Tubbs getting ready for a vacation. However, a hurricane rolls in which prevents them from attending. Instead of relocating out of Stool Bend, they stay and are now trapped in their house while the hurricane rages on. They don't know what to do, so as their last resort, they all begin to pray for God to help them. Cleveland notices that Junior is not joining them in prayer, so he tells him to join. But Junior passes up the offer because he says that he doesn't believe in God. The whole family's eyes have this fearful look in them. They're hardly capable of conceiving that Junior doesn't believe in God. Cleveland asks Junior how he cannot believe in God, and Junior says that he began to question his faith after his mom said Jesus forgave her after she had an affair with Quagmire. He says it just seemed too easy, which leads me to believe that Junior thinks it seems too easy to have your wrongs go unpunished as long as you admit to your sins. No, not those sins. Anyways, Junior then says that after a while, he decided to not believe in God. He doesn't come out and say it, but it is implied that Junior just learned up on basic science and reasoning, which seems more logical than to believe in something that you cannot perceive in any way. I can back this up because later on, Junior talks about how he doesn't believe in things he can't measure, unlike science, which you can measure. But I'll talk about that when the time comes. That's not to say that all religious people are anti-science and reasoning. I'm just talking about Junior specifically and how using that brought him to his own conclusion. What I like about this scene is how it portrays non-religious people. For some reason, there is a good number of religious people who believe that people who only stop believing in whatever religion they were taught is because said person had something tragic happen to them. Like, someone close to them had to have passed away, or they went bankrupt, or something along those lines. They believe that something awful had to happen in your life to make you become an atheist. While there are people like that who do exist, and they do stop believing because something tragic happened, that doesn't mean everyone is like that. The majority doesn't have something tragic occur in their life that made them stop believing. They just spent time thinking about it. They even do more research into their own religion to reinforce their own beliefs, while also learning something from a new perspective. And it is not like that this is something that happens within the span of a few hours. People spend days, weeks, months, and possibly even years engaging in this battle of tug-of-war between their own religion and not believing in it. And after spending however long it takes them, you just stop believing. It's not like you choose to stop believing because you want to sin or anything. It's just that from everything you learned, you cannot possibly fathom that the religion you were led to believe is actually real. So back to the episode. Cleveland says that Junior is an atheist, but Junior says he is not. He says atheism is a religion too, but doesn't give any evidence to support his claim. Well, atheism is not a religion. It is the complete opposite. It is the disbelief of a god. There's no figure that atheists worship, so it just seems kind of misplaced why the writers would insert this line. Perhaps they wanted to take shots at both sides. And Junior says that atheists are the worst type of people. He uses Brian Griffin as an example of how much of a douche he is about being an atheist. Ugh, Brian. I don't want to talk about him anymore. So it sounds like Junior is not an atheist because of guilt by association. So what are you, Junior? You're not religious. You say you're not an atheist, so are you an agnostic? It doesn't sound like it because you're flat out rejecting the existence of God. Anyways, Junior goes to his room and Rollo accompanies him in hopes of converting him. Rollo sounds like one of those people who found God while he was in prison, and he tells Junior that he needs to have faith. Rollo says that he believes that God knows who he is and that God is looking over him. He tries to explain to Junior what faith is, so after Rollo says that, he asks Junior if he knows what he means. You know, to believe in a being that created the entire universe and that said being is looking over you. So Junior says this.
Narcissism?
That actually got a chuckle out of me for the first time when I heard it. I see what the writers were going for with this scene. They're trying to say that if you believe someone created the entire universe just for you, well, then you're a narcissist. The rest of the family doesn't give up on Junior yet. They do a musical number to win over his faith, which is actually kind of catchy, but their approach is kind of the same as Rallo's, so it's not going to have a different effect. Just like how Rallo says he found God when he was at his lowest, Cleveland is saying he found God because he didn't feel complete. He says there was a hole in his life which was filled by Jesus, and now he is a believer. The family talks about the miracles of God and Jesus and how they help them whenever they need help with something. The biggest takeaway from this song, however, is how they pretty much try and use fear to convince Junior to believe in God. They have this happy-go-lucky song talking about how much God loves you and how he is looking out for you, but if you don't believe in him, then you're going to spend an eternity experiencing the most dreadful things you can imagine. It sounds very similar to what some parents do to their kids. They instill this fear into them that they have to believe in God because if they don't, then they'll go to hell. And a kid is a kid. They're not going to be able to rationalize this, so they'll believe in God and possibly stick with that idea for the rest of their life and perhaps even use that same tactic on their own kids. They don't manage to convert Junior through the song. He goes back to his room and the family notices they have no more food. They suspect Junior is hoarding the food, so they barge into his room and see that he does in fact have the provisions. But Junior says that he is rationing it for all of them, but they don't really care. They're still kind of salty about the whole not believing in God thing. So Cleveland pretty much disowns his son and says, "May God bring his wrath upon thee," and then a tree comes crashing down through the roof and traps Cleveland. And would you look at that? Another comparison between how some people react when they find out someone close to them is a non-believer. They disown them, and there are people out there who have been kicked out of their homes by their parents because they did not believe. It's not just Cleveland who has essentially disowned Junior, it is the entire family. They try to get Cleveland out from under the tree, and when Junior tries to help, they tell him to stay away because this is all his fault. Had he believed in God, none of this would have ever happened. The family is losing hope in getting Cleveland out from under the tree. Junior asks how are they going to get him out, and Donna says that all they can do now is pray to God and hope he gets him out. Junior makes a sassy remark on how God has been helping them out so far, and Donna snaps right here. After everyone tries to explain to Junior what faith is and what God is, she comes off sounding the most reasonable. She says that she knows it doesn't make sense to have faith in something you can't prove exists, but that's what faith is, believing that everything will be okay. Junior says that he only believes in things that you can touch, see, and measure, and here we get the one scene of someone one-upping Junior. Donna says that Han Solo didn't believe in the Force, but he didn't call Luke Skywalker an idiot for believing in it. Now, I haven't watched Star Wars in a while, but I'm pretty sure Han did mock Luke for believing in the Force. That's besides the point. Junior tries to explain the difference between that and God, but before he can, Donna cuts him off and says that the Force is an unseen power where one draws strength and inspiration. This blows Junior's mind away, but I can't help but feel how mishandled this scene was. I have no qualms with religious people getting the one up on atheists, but I would appreciate it if they gave a better example than this. But I can't tell if this was supposed to be a checkmate atheists moment or a moment where Donna exposes Junior for his own inconsistencies. And if it's the latter, then I'm all for this scene. He believes in something that is proven to be fictional, and we cannot measure the Force in real life. Yet he doesn't believe in God, which we also can't measure, and it's actually debatable if he is fictional or not. So, Donna says that she believes because it gives her peace and happiness, which is fine and all, but I don't see why she's getting upset when Junior forces his beliefs onto them, but she forces her beliefs onto him. It just seems kind of hypocritical. The family prays some more, then the tree begins to move. Turns out Junior used science and basic engineering to hoist the tree upwards, but his achievement goes unnoticed. Everyone credits God for getting Cleveland out from the tree because they prayed. Cleveland says God made Junior look like a fool and he just witnessed a miracle, which he himself has just achieved. Junior is the one who had achieved this feat of getting his father out from under the tree, but to the family, Junior was only able to do this because God gave him the power to do so. Junior rejects that and says that he learned this through school, which gave him the knowledge to do this. But Cleveland's rebuttal to that is that God built the schools. No matter what Junior says to convince them, they can just say that God was the one who allowed them to do so. At this point, Cleveland is just using the proof of God is all around you. The fact that there is life is proof argument. Junior gives up arguing with his family when Cleveland resorts to this, and then the episode is over. The episode did a good job in portraying the arguments for God's existence. Granted, they heavily flanderized it, but nonetheless, that is the argument you hear. You can really tell that the writers were attempting to play both sides, but they focused a lot more on one side than the other. Almost everything that comes out of the family's mouth is supposed to sound ridiculous, while Junior comes off sounding moderate. Sure, he has a few inconsistencies, but his own inconsistencies are still more reasonable than that of Cleveland's and the Tubbs. But anyways, that's gonna do it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it, so please consider sharing, and subscribing, and leave a comment while you're at it. And until then, catch you later.